Podcast 2. The impact of dementia on the brain. The brain is an incredibly complex and complicated structure containing 100 billion nerve cells. These cells control and coordinate everything that the body feels and does. Unless problems develop, we rarely pause to consider the sheer effort that is required by the brain simply to make basic living happen. When a person develops dementia, although initially there may be little impact on a person, changes to the brain will eventually affect the ability to function without support. The parts of the brain that are affected, and therefore the type of difficulties that may be experienced, depends on the type of dementia, as well as on other factors, including the person's previous level of ability. For example, someone who has always had a very poor sense of direction is still likely to have a very poor sense of direction, regardless of where damage caused by dementia occurs. It is essential to remember that just as every person is unique, the way that each person with dementia experiences their dementia is unique too. It's therefore helpful to have an overall understanding of the types of difficulties that a person may experience so that we can make sure that the right level of support is provided to individuals. Let's think about some common examples. Problems with word finding and language are really very common. For example, struggling to find the right words or having difficulty following a conversation. A person may have difficulty with concentration, planning and sequencing. For example, struggling to make sense of which order to put clothes on when getting dressed, or being unable to make decisions when offered a choice. A person may also have increasing difficulties judging distances. For instance, the distance between a table and a chair when going to sit down, or seeing the world in a distorted way. It is also quite common for a person to lose track of the day, the time, or the place that that person is in. Thinking and concentrating can become increasingly difficult, including a person becoming confused when overloaded with information, or taking more and more time to find the answer to a question. Depending on the area of the brain that has been damaged, a person may experience problems physically coordinating items, for instance, manoeuvring food on a fork from plate to mouth. Problems with attention is also very common. For example, a fluctuating attention span during an activity and varying levels of alertness. Hallucinations are commonly experienced by a person with dementia with Lewy bodies and can be extremely distressing. For example, mistaking a shadow for a person. Throughout the Reconnect manual, which is available in each of our homes, there are practical examples and suggestions of how you can support a resident who is experiencing some or all of these difficulties. You'll perhaps be wondering why I haven't mentioned memory difficulties, when it's probably the first thing that we think about when we think about a person with dementia. Podcast 3 will look at how memory can be affected and some of the difficulties that can cause.